You're wondering where your mother is.
You have her? What did you do to her?
Relax. She's fine. Susan is being well taken care of. For the moment.
Don't you dare hurt her.
Okay, let me get one thing clear here. I am calling the shots now.
Wendy, are you awake? Wendy!
What happened?
What do you mean there's no baby?
I mean that I'm not pregnant anymore.
How could you?
How could I what?
What did you say to Jada?
Jada?
Tell me the truth, Nicole. Did you encourage Jada to have an abortion?
Coming in at number 7 for November 2022 in my soap opera rankings is Days of Our Lives. It goes up a spot, and I tell you, I want to like this show so much. I want to like it. I've said it many times. Days of Our Lives is my favorite soap opera. It's the first soap opera I watched, so it's my favorite soap opera. And I want to like Ron's writing. I want to so bad, and I wanted to put Days of Our Lives higher in the rankings this month. And at the beginning of November, I thought, Days might be going up. I see a lot of potential in some storylines. I actually have positive things to say about Days of Our Lives for basically the first time this entire year. And then I got to the middle of the month, and I was reminded why this show sucks and why Ron's writing sucks. And the scenes I'm talking about is... We're gonna start with the negatives, but I am gonna have some positive things to talk about. But we're gonna start with the negatives and why I can't put Days any higher right now. And that was the scenes between Susan and Bonnie when they're kidnapped and gagged, but Susan is able to basically talk to Bonnie with her mind. Suddenly, Susan is a mutant. Susan is from X-Men.
I'm hearing your thoughts.
Yes, sweetheart, and I'm hearing yours. Some of them are downright filthy, by the way. Like that fantasy you were having about Mr. Justin Kyriakis dressed as a fireman rescuing you from a burning building, and that big old hose was
Stop it.
Stop what?
Stop getting inside my brain.
And it's just stupid. It's stupid. I'm tired of every storyline on this show has to be taken to a level of ridiculousness every time. Nothing on this show is serious enough, and not everything has to be serious, but not everything should be a joke and utterly ridiculous. But that is what we got with this Susan and Bonnie scene. And I was watching that episode with somebody who doesn't watch soap operas, and it's a wonder why she doesn't, because you see that scene of Susan and Bonnie talking to themselves with their minds, basically. And yeah, it's like, what are you watching? What is this? It was stupid. It was cheesy. It was downright embarrassing is what it was. I don't know. I'm assuming they were going for laughs, because that's all they do at Days these days, is try to go for laughs with storylines. Other than, instead of giving us good writing, they'd rather go for laughs. But it wasn't funny. It was cheesy and stupid. So I had to get that out of the way. That was literally the reason I could not put Days any higher, because it reminds me why this show is such a joke most of the time. And not in a good way. It's just not in a good way. The Ava kidnapping Susan to get back at EJ, and EJ, holding Trip story wasn't bad. I enjoyed some of it. There's the side of Xander working for Ava on this, even though Xander's trying to change, and now he's afraid if Sarah finds out she's going to leave him because he did something bad again. There was aspects of the story that were good. And even the aftermath of it, of Susan's presumed death, which I will get to in a second, and that's another problem on Days. This was actually a solid enough, watchable storyline. It was enjoyable at times. It was enough drama for me at times. I liked Ava. Well, I liked Ava basically causing the accident, purposefully driving with Susan. But I didn't like the character of Ava going from 0 to 100 and becoming a cartoon villain. I've talked about cartoon villains a lot on this channel too, and how much I hate cartoon villains these days because there's too much of them. I've enjoyed cartoon villains in the past, but these days that's all soap operas seem to be able to do, at least in America. And yeah, like they've had Ava on the show for a couple of years now, it seems like, and it had nothing to do with, they did nothing with her. It's like they made her this cookie cutter character, but then suddenly she goes from 0 to 100. It's bad writing is what it comes down to from Ron. That is bad writing 101. But like I said, the story overall, I liked the acting from Dan. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm going to call him Dan, the man that plays EJ. Dan's acting, mourning Susan, has been spectacular. He's killing it. He's definitely giving this role his all, getting a meaty story, and he's doing well with it. I even like the fact that it seems Ava might actually still be alive from this car accident, and even though EJ is thinking it was a hallucination, but we see EJ's forehead grazed with a bullet, and then we see the bullet on the ground. So that's another aspect of the story I could like, if Ava's trying to cause EJ to go insane or something. I'm here for that side of the story. But as we get more and more into these other stories, the biggest story with Days is that the writing over the past year plus has started to hurt characters and hurt classic older couples. Like we've seen Craig and Nancy destroyed, Philip destroyed in the pairing with Philip and Chloe, Lucas destroyed in the pairing with Lucas and Sammy, Eric and Nicole. I mean, I'm sick of this couple. I've been sick of this couple. This couple was destroyed long ago, but they're kind of doing that again. The writing doesn't do the characters any favors, and it's making for a show that has a lot of unlikable characters. And when a show has too many unlikable characters, it becomes a major turnoff for most of the audience. This is just a fact over time with television. You could go back and see on plenty of shows on television where if you have a cast of characters that's too unlikable, well, nobody's going to want to watch it for long. And that is probably Days' biggest problems, is that. But another story I am enjoying, and I think they're kind of carrying the show for me, is Wendy and Johnny kind of trying to go to Rolf and figure out, basically investigating Rolf and what really happened to Stefan with him being back from the dead. And they run into Rolf. Rolf basically drugs them up and ties them up, but they outsmart Rolf and get away. And they did figure out that Lee and EJ are responsible for like the brainwashing of Stefan and why he doesn't remember Gabby and all of that, his memory loss and whatever. But I still think Wendy and Tripp have better chemistry than Wendy and Johnny as a couple, but I do still like Wendy and Johnny together as a potential couple. I kind of like them more as friends, honestly, but I do like them on this kind of like adventure together to figure out what Rolf's really been up to. And then after the fact, Wendy confronts Lee, Johnny confronts EJ. They both know the truth. They're keeping it a secret for now, but I enjoyed the movement in that story. A story that's a mixed bag for me is the Jada, Eric, Nicole stuff. Jada being pregnant with Eric's baby, even though Eric and Nicole are starting to get back together, even though Nicole is married to Rafe. Honestly, this is the first time ever Rafe's been semi-enjoyable to me, ever. In the history of this character, is Rafe being so petty and annoyed with Nicole. That part of the story was kind of entertaining. They actually managed to make Rafe entertaining, so that's a plus, because it's hard to do. But I don't know. I do think the writing for Jada is good, so that's something I'm happy about, because she's kind of the interloper to an alleged super couple. I'm not convinced Nicole and Eric are a super couple, but she's the interloper to this alleged super couple of Eric and Nicole. But they've written her very even. She doesn't take shit, but she's also not a bitch at all. She just stands her ground at all times. She's a very respectful, strong character, so the writing for Jada is great. I also like the aspect of Nicole pushing for Jada to have an abortion, and Jada allegedly going through with it, telling Eric that she did, and then telling Eric about the conversation with Nicole. Now, I'm recording this at the very end of November, so I'm not going to see the confrontation of Eric and Nicole. Maybe if I remember, I'll talk about that in December. But I still think overall this story is another decent enough story. Like, Days is starting to actually have some decent stories again, and not everything is super over the top, but there's still too much of that for me to put the show any higher. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I still think there's too many unlikable characters, though, such as Gwen. Sarah and Xander do nothing for me. I don't like them. Rolf, Kristen, even Susan and Bonnie, I don't like them. I don't think they're super likable. I find them annoying. They've even kind of hurt Chanel in this story with her and the fact that she is kind of responsible for Sloane's dad being killed. Apparently, when she was in college, she was having an affair with this professor who was married, of course, to Sloane's mother. I mean, Chanel is still the victim in this because she's just a student and this is a position of power, Sloane's father being a professor. So Chanel was still kind of a victim in that story. But I don't know. If anyone kind of has the potential to be ruined in that story, it's kind of Paulina. But we'll see where they go with that. I don't completely hate that story either. I do hate the Stephanie, Alex, Chad triangle. And Stephanie kind of like giving Alex a chance now. It really kind of feels like she's settling for Alex because Chad's not ready to move on. Not a big fan of the Stephanie and Alex coupling. I also don't know how I feel about Stefan and Chloe. I don't hate it, but it's very boring. And Xander and Gwen and Sarah, that's fast forward material for me. I'll tell you that much. But if Days could get away from the over-the-top stuff like Susan and Bonnie being able to talk to each other with their minds, and anything Rolf is just... I don't like the new actor playing Rolf at all. It's so cartoonish, and I mean, Rolf's always been a cartoon, let's be real. But this is even worse somehow. It's even more extreme. They also turned Ava into a cartoon villain because that seems to be all they know how to do was write cartoon villains on this show for the most part. But if they could get away from some of that and get away from destroying characters such as Philip, Lucas, Craig, Nancy, they've ruined a lot of characters over the past year with terrible writing. That has to stop. That has to stop. The writing has to get better on that end. But overall, there's a lot more potential in this show for the first time all year. We might be moving in a good direction. And I know Bo and Hope are going to be returning soon in the future, which I'm looking forward to. I'm a big Bo and Hope fan. However, at the same time, I don't know if I'm excited about Ron writing for them because he might ruin them. So that's a possibility. But Days goes up a spot to number 7. I hope it gets better. I want to like this show. But give me stronger writing, please.